Before we delve into today's interview, for more information and for some other great interviews, please visit the socialblueprint.org.au, and our interviews are now available on Spotify. So go to YouTube or our website and check us out and listen to our interviews and see what is going on in the community and what events are upcoming and exciting things that are happening around the place. So today I'm really excited to be interviewing Elli Tamar, and I guess in introducing Elli, I'm going to say Elli's an influencer.
Oh God.
And I think for our older members of our audience, for those who are not necessarily aware what we mean by an influencer generally is thought of as somebody who's got a great presence on social media, and by virtue of the products and services they're talking about, it influences others to make similar choices. But I think what's interesting is that for you, the things that you are, the area that you're an influencer in is really mundane everyday life. And that's not to belittle what you do, but you're influencing in areas like basic lifestyle choices, cooking for toddlers, kitchen decisions, meal prep, as I said, lifestyle choices. So welcome today.
Thank you.
It's with that different sort of introduction. I wanted to start by talking to you about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when I refer to influencers, I think that we fall into the trap of thinking that what we see is what we get on social media. And I think people forget that things are so curated, and we see one image or one take of something that might have been one of 100. So I wanted to ask you about your take on that. And from a viewer perspective, you seem totally authentic, and that to me is a uniquity of what you're doing. Yeah.
I mean, social media is all smoke and mirrors, especially now that I'm on the other side of it. I know how much of it is curated and edited, and nothing is what you think that it is. I think because I never started this to make money. It wasn't like a goal. I hate the word influencer because I don't know, it just doesn't hold a lot of value. But I never did this to monetize, and I don't want to quit my job and have this become like a full-time thing. So I'm not driven by trying to do ads and brand collaborations and that kind of thing. So because of that, I can be myself 100% of the time. I'm not trying to get more views and more likes to try and get more brand deals.
There's no ulterior
Exactly.
motive.
I have my career, and I would never change that. This is just something that I do on the side, so I can kind of do what I want in terms of if I want to work with a brand because it's something that I actually really believe in. It's something that I use. That's just like the cherry on the top. It's just a bonus for me.
And are you consciously aware of that though when you're filming, and we'll get into more detail about what you're doing, but when you're filming, are you consciously aware of, are there times when you think that's not me, not doing it, or really trying to just present yourself?
I'm always trying to be myself 100% of the time. I will show up in with my hair a mess, in my ugly pajamas, with my kids screaming in the background. I don't want to curate it at all. I don't have the time for that, to be honest. This does take up a really big portion of my time, and I try and do it after hours so I don't take away from my family life and it doesn't get in the way. And also because I don't include my kids on my social media, which is really important. I have to make sure that they're doing something else or they're not in the shot. So I do only have time to show up as 100% myself all the time.
Makes sense. Is that a conscious decision? Sounds like it, to leave your kids out of it?
Oh my God, yeah. I think that, that's a whole other conversation. And not to I never wanted to come across as shaming other parents, but I do think that it is child exploitation to an extent, especially when you're monetizing off your children and putting them in situations to, make them do or say certain things for the camera, especially if you're doing brand deals with kids. I've lost a lot of, I've had a lot of people not want to work with me because I'm not showing my children in the content.
Interesting.
But and also they can't advocate for themselves. They can't consent at this age. So I don't want to broadcast them on the internet.
Were you, and not from a judgment perspective, but to understand what you just said, which I totally understand, would you have been the sort of person before that would have posted photos? So I know some people say, I go on a holiday, I'm not putting a photo of my child on there. Did it does it bother you, or would you do, and I understand what you're saying about the monetizing 100%. Would you have been happy doing family pics and stuff before, or it's different now that you've got a bigger audience?
I would have before I was aware of what was going on the internet, but being on the other side now, and also speaking to a few professionals in this industry, I know how bad it is. So I wouldn't even post a picture of my children with an emoji on it, because you can have the emoji removed.
Okay, interesting. I often wonder that when I'm looking at posts and thinking, well, I'm not sure how effective that is.
Yeah, you'll see the back of their head occasionally, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I wanted to go back a few steps. So you started out, you were studying, you're now a sonographer. What did you study?
So I thought I was going to be a vet. Like, I was hell-bent on that career, and there was no career counsellor who was going to change my mind. So I had a plan to do a Bachelor of Science and then a postgrad of veterinary medicine. And while I was doing my Bachelor of Science, I got a job as a vet nurse, because I thought it'd be good to be in the industry and know people, and it would be easier afterwards. But while I was doing that, I realised that the veterinary industry is really terrible. It's not a good career at all.
In what sense?
The hours are bad. The pay is atrocious. People think that vets get paid millions of dollars. You get paid more working at Coles. So the pay is terrible. The hours are bad, and the clients are the rudest of the rude. And I've worked in Glicks for 9 years, so I know rude customers. I know them, and in the vet industry, they are the worst. So
so I wouldn't have picked that. I would have thought that people with animals, that they come in and they're so passionate, but I guess if they're upset and stressed, they take that out.
Well, I mean, no one wants to fork out hundreds of dollars for their animal at the end of the day. That's just how much it costs. So
yes, okay.
Yeah.
So at what point did you?
Well, I was really enjoying physiology, human pathophysiology, reproductive sciences, that kind of thing. And my mum is a professor in medical imaging at Monash University. Or she's actually retired now, but she suggested ultrasound to me, and I started studying it. I really loved it, which was great, because I wasn't planning on changing or doing something else. So it all kind of worked out for me really well.
And you had a business with silicone, was it baby products?
Yeah,
okay,
like
baby
the feeding, like the plates and stuff. We started that during COVID. I had really bad postpartum depression with my first child. And during the pandemic, it was because of all the lockdowns and the isolation.
At what point had you, how old was your child? Had you just had a child during COVID or pre-COVID?
Yeah, June 2020, right when like the big lockdown started. So I had my baby, and then 5 days later, like that's when the lockdown started. And it was the whole 5 kilometer radius, couldn't leave after 7 p.m. So like my parents were sneaking in and out of our house, hoping that like the neighbours wouldn't report us. So it was, there was no support. Like even the maternal child health nurse had to stand 4 meters away from me on the other side of the room. And so I needed to do something else with my time. So I went back to work early, but we also started this small business just to have something to do. So that's kind of how I ended up on social media, to be honest.
So when you say we, was that you and your husband doing it together?
Well, he was doing all of the tech stuff, like the websites and all of that stuff that I couldn't do. So we did it together.
And how did that, digressing a little bit, what effect did that have on the postpartum depression? Was that a helpful tool? Or distraction is probably the wrong word, but...
Yeah, because, I mean, work was the biggest thing that helped at the end of the day, but having something to do, because during COVID, all the shops were closed, there was nothing to do, and you've got a baby. What do you do with your newborn baby? You go to the supermarket, you go to baby round time or playgroup, couldn't do any of that. So I needed something to keep myself busy. I'm a busy person, and I thrive on productivity. So I needed something to do.
So you then were presumably selling online, given that shop front wouldn't have helped anyway, because we weren't allowed to go into shops. So you started that online. Excuse me. So in terms of marketing and promoting, was that falling on you or your husband? And is that
was all
social
me.
media?
Yeah, that's all started with social media.
Okay, and how did you navigate your way?
Just trial and error. Yeah, just trial and error. Just put yourself out there and hope for the best, and you learn as you go and make mistakes as you go.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Were you working as a sonographer at the same time? At that point, you had gone back to work?
Yeah.
So was that stressful, the juggle? I mean, you're saying it was therapeutic on the one hand, but I imagine that was also a difficult time to be going to work during lockdown, to be running a business online, and also trying to care for a newborn baby.
I mean, going to work was, it was a bit tricky because on the one hand, going to work was the one thing that helped me because it made me feel like myself again with the postpartum depression. It was the only thing that I could do to make me feel like myself. Like I couldn't get a haircut, I couldn't see my friends. So day and night once I started going to work. But then I was also wrapped in plastic beyond comprehension because of COVID.
Yes.
And worried that I was going to take it home to my family, to my baby. So it was really stressful, but it had to be done. I felt like I didn't have an option.
Okay. So I imagine the lead up to having your second daughter. So how old are your kids now?
2 and 4.
Okay. So thinking back 2 years, or probably more, 2.5 years, was that stressful for you being pregnant, anticipating the postpartum depression that you had been through the first time?
Oh my God, yeah. And I didn't talk about this with anyone actually, but I was looking at statistics and all the statistics said like 90% of people who've had postpartum depression before will have it again. So I was panicking that it was going to happen. But I knew this time what I needed to do to kind of prevent it. Yeah. So I had already set in place that at 6 months I was going to go back to work. Okay. So even if I kind of felt like I was like slipping and, starting to get a bit sad, I knew that there was an end goal. Like I knew the date that I was going to be back at work. So that was really helpful. Yeah. Plus I went back to work on call before 6 months. So I was already kind of like in and out of work, even though I wasn't there 9 to 5.
So it's interesting, thinking about for people that might find themselves in similar positions, the planning. And it's something I haven't given a lot of thought to before. But the anticipation, which I imagine, as you said, would be terrifying. Yeah. But also having coping mechanisms in place and thinking, okay, what worked, what didn't work? Can I get onto them sooner rather than later? And I don't know. It's amazing that it worked for you. I don't know whether that would work for other people, whether it does, whether it doesn't. But yeah, I imagine it would add a whole nother layer of stress onto a pregnancy.
Yeah, I don't know if it happened again, how I would have made it through having another child to look after this time. Yeah. Rather than just the newborn and myself.
Yes.
And, like family is helpful. Like it's good to have that support system, but they can't really get you out of it. At least was my experience anyway.
Yeah. And your husband, was that a pressure on your relationship?
No, not so much. It was really separate from him. Like the first time around, to be honest, he was mostly unaware because, I don't know, the only person who noticed was my mum. Yeah. She was the only one. No one else, even my husband didn't pick up on it. Yeah. And second time around, I was lucky that I managed to avoid it.
Okay, amazing. And you're talking about going back to work, and clearly that's a really helpful tool for you. I saw on social media that you were getting flack from people about how quickly you return to work. And how do you handle that?
I just don't care what people say anymore. Like I've reached that point in my life where I do not care what anyone says or thinks about me. I'm just going to do what works for me all the time. Yeah. So some people, even my close circle, said to me, "Oh, you're letting like daycare raise your babies and all of that." But at the end of the day, like I have to fill my own cup in order to be able to parent the way that I want to. Yes, so,
without judgment.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I keep hearing people that have turned 50 that said, the biggest change at 50 was I said, I don't care anymore. I'm glad you hit that stage earlier.
The earlier the better.
Yes, absolutely. So you had your children and you were then working as a sonographer. The business, you obviously digressed from the silicone, from the baby goods.
Well, the business was doing well. Yeah. And social media was why it was doing well. We weren't advertising. I was just basically using the products in my house and showing people how I use it. So it was doing well, but it kind of got to that point where it needed to be scaled, and I just didn't have the time to do it. Yeah. So I would have had to take away time from my job, and I never want ultrasound to be secondary. It's fine. It's like I love my job and it's my career, and I would never stop working. Okay. So it wasn't something that I was so passionate about that I was willing to give up my ultrasound career for. Yeah. So we kind of made the decision that, yes, we could have sold it, but that would have taken up a lot of time. And my husband also, he has a really busy government job, so he doesn't really have time after hours either. So we just decided to sell it and move on from there.
Okay. So the transition into social media, how did that start in terms of growth?
Well, I was already kind of where I am now in terms of what I was doing at the end of the small business. So I was doing mostly like cooking and mum life stuff. So when it ended, I just said, I'm just going to keep showing up the way that I have been, because, you know, that's what was authentic to me.
Yes.
So I didn't feel like I needed to change anything. I still use the products, like I still use the lunch boxes and the plates and all of that kind of stuff. But now when people ask me, oh, where can I get that? I'm like, I actually, you know, I'm not really sure. Like,
there's a gap in the market.
There are other people who sell it. There's plenty of other people, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to direct people anymore.
So at what point was it a conscious decision where you said, I'm actually now going to spend more time on social media and I'm going to grow my social media following? You know, I guess, you know, we all have social media followings, some larger than others. I guess it depends what we share on there. But at what point did you consciously say, okay, wow, I'm actually getting traction here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and grow it, or wow, I'm getting traction and what do I do next?
I mean, I've never thought about like, what am I going to do next? Because it's a bit tricky. Like I do cooking, a lot of cooking stuff. And that's kind of what I love cooking for my family. Like cooking and food is my love language. So I'm always just filming that anyway. A lot of people will cook for content. They'll cook something that they think is going to go viral, and they're cooking for content. But I'm doing it the other way around. Like what I'm showing you is what we're actually eating, because the other way around is really wasteful. I think it's a waste of time and money. So I'm always kind of sharing what I'm actually doing, and people were really enjoying that. They, you know, a lot of things that I thought was just like lazy parenting or lazy cooking, people thought, wow, like that's a really good hack. I didn't think to do that. So I just kept sharing.
Because I think it's quite confronting. Well, I think it's confronting, but that's my own personality, to put yourself out there on social media and to put yourself in front of the camera. As I sit here in front of the camera. But I think that can be quite overwhelming and daunting. Did that bother you, or you just went, forget the camera's there and just keep going?
At the start, when I was just doing my small business stuff and it wasn't about me and what I was doing, it was really confronting. And I had a friend and I was like, oh, you can be the face of the brand. You do it. I'll just film and edit. But then I just decided, no, I have to be the one to do this. And once you do it, it just gets easier and easier. And like talking to the camera is something that you just have to learn how to do. But I just treat it like I'm talking to my friends. And it's fine now. So
let's talk about what you actually do behind the camera for those that haven't followed you. And it's a big presence, largely on Instagram, but really TikTok is I would imagine, more from what I can see, the biggest platform for you. Explain for those who wouldn't have seen what it is you're doing behind the camera, in front of the camera.
Like what I'm doing on social media?
Yeah.
I think I'm just mostly sharing like all the cooking that I'm doing for my family, the hacks that I do along the way, mum life. I do a lot of vlogs. I do a lot of stuff around ultrasound these days as well, because I find that people are really interested and they have a lot of questions.
Yes.
But it's really just like my everyday life.
So in terms of your everyday life and the cooking, before any of this, before social media, you obviously, as you said, love cooking and love being in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Are you the sort of person that follows a recipe, or it's just throw things together and see how it works out, or tweak, or?
Yeah, when I'm cooking for my family, it's definitely just trial and error. And I mean, one of my pet peeves is when you get a recipe, right? And it's got a million ingredients, or it's got one thing that you have to buy for that one recipe, and then you know you're never going to use it again. So I'm always just replacing things with what I have available.
Yes.
So I do follow recipes if I'm cooking for like Shabbat dinner or something, and I need to make sure it's going to be right. But when I'm cooking for my kids, I use what I have and just chop and change all the time.
So have you always been that person that loved cooking, or was the one that was, you know, bringing food to people's houses, or, you know, making Shabbat, like pre-kids as well?
I definitely always loved cooking, even when I was younger. Yeah.
And some of the things that you touch on in your vlogs, in your posts, things like leftovers, making the most of leftovers, no waste type food.
Yeah.
Do you find, I mean, it's difficult. I would have thought that at 4 and 2, your kids are picky. Maybe you've got good eaters.
I mean, I did have good eaters for a while. The 4-year-old has just become incredibly challenging, but that's fine. We're working with it.
Yeah.
I just remind myself I'm not cooking for MasterChef. You know, I'm cooking for toddlers. So they can be picky, but like I feel like I know my children, so I know how I can work around it, and how I can hide things if I need to, like especially if it's a leftover I don't want to waste. Yeah. Which I know some people don't agree with, but this is what I do and it works for us. So
is that then an issue for your husband in terms of, and yourself, cooking for the two of you, where it might be stuff that gets past your kids but not necessarily you guys?
Thankfully, my husband is not a picky eater.
Okay.
He will eat what he gets. I do 100% of the cooking in the house, and he's happy to just eat whatever's in front of him. Yeah.
So what are the things that are important to you? Clearly no waste, in terms of cooking, clearly no waste, cooking on a budget.
Mm-hmm.
But things like cooking on a budget, are you still brand loyal?
I am brand loyal to particular brands, not because it's the brand, but because it's something that I actually really believe in and I really like, and I have a good selection, so there's no reason for me to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
But I'm not the kind of person who's going to sign on with one brand and then not use anything else because they've signed on with them.
Yes.
I've had one brand reach out to me and they wanted me to be an ambassador, and it was like they were offering like a lot of money, but I said no because then I wouldn't be able to use any other brands in that field. And
I like cook.
Yeah, that's how I cook, so I can't do that kind of thing.
Are you having those days? Please say yes. That you have those days where there's no inspiration and you're looking in the fridge thinking there's very little in there. What on earth am I cooking?
Yeah. It's pasta with frozen peas in it. It's like it's carbs, it's vegetables. I put butter in there for some fats. I know my kids are going to eat it. My husband will eat it, and I'll eat it, and that's it. It's 5 minutes. It's done.
Are you trying to often hide things from your kids, like sneaky vegetables or protein and whatever it might be, or are they easy in that regard that you can present them with a plate full of vegetables and they'll eat that?
No, they're not going to eat that.
Okay.
I mean, I have a 4-year-old who does love salad, which is great for me. Look, I do hide food in my vegetables and things in my kids' food, and it's not to be deceptive. If they ask me what's in it, I'll tell them honestly. But they're not going to eat silk tofu if I give it to them the way that I would eat it. But if I blend it into pasta sauce, they're just going to eat it. They're not even going to know. So if no one's asking questions, then it's fine. No problems. And
you're juggling being a mum, putting yourself in front of the camera and cooking in front of people, and I'm imagining that also takes more time when you're trying to film it as opposed to just chucking things in. And
I mean, surprisingly, filming doesn't take any time because I just set up my camera and I just do what I'm doing anyway. Yeah. It's editing that takes a long time.
And juggling that with work, you love your work. Are you working almost full time? How are you juggling? Yeah, my work hours haven't changed with social media. So I was always doing 3 days plus a lot of on-call. And on-call really works when I've got little children, which is the opposite of what people think, but it works really well. So in the evenings, it means that the time that someone else might be going out or watching Netflix, like I'm editing content. That's why I do it, because I don't want it to take away time from my kids. And for those that won't have seen some of your videos and posts, work as a sonographer, what are you largely, if I had to say you on an average day, what are you doing on ultrasound? People automatically, I think, with ultrasound go baby. Oh yeah, yeah. Everyone thinks all I do is scan babies all day. It must be so wonderful and magical. But I work, they don't deliver babies, so we do some pregnancies, but not a lot. Mostly, I would say it's people with sore shoulders, liver disease, lumps and bumps, that kind of thing. And I imagine that you are getting the patients who, and it's actually probably a frustration of a lot of people, why can't my sonographer just tell me what they're seeing on the ultrasound? Why can't you tell me now? I mean, legally, from a legal perspective, we're not doctors, so the news has to come from a doctor. But every department has different rules. I do tell a lot of my patients the results, especially with things like a shoulder. Yes. Okay, so you've torn a tendon. It's not a big deal. Like, we can have a conversation about it. But if I find cancer in someone, like, obviously that news is not going to come from me. Yes. The only bad news that comes from me is if it's a medical emergency. So if someone's got like a blood clot in their leg and we need to send them to the emergency department, or if unfortunately, like, I'm scanning baby, there's a heartbeat or there's some sort of abnormality, you can't let the woman leave the room thinking, oh, it's fine, I'm going to see my doctor in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. And I imagine, you're seeing people at a pretty vulnerable stage. Nobody likes sitting on that bed being ultrasounded, having an ultrasound, because you feel vulnerable and you're totally not in control. Yeah. Do you find that vulnerability translates to kindness, or it makes people the other way because of the anxiety?
can go either way. Most people are really kind and like really appreciative when you give them any information at all, because they come in expecting nothing.
Yes.
They don't expect results. But it can go the other way, and it has gone the other way, especially if you don't give them results because you can't. People have gotten really aggressive.
And are you trained, is that something as an informal training at work that you're trained in how to deal with?
No, I didn't finish my degree with training for that kind of thing. So we're not really trained how to break bad news to patients. You have to hope that, because you do your degrees, like you have your degree, which is a lot of an online component, but a lot of it is a prac, so like on placement component. So you need to hope that the person who's training you can teach you that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can't teach empathy, so that's really difficult. That just has to come with maturity and life experience. But how to break that kind of news to someone, it's tricky. Yeah.
I guess it's something that you either get better at or you shy away from.
Some people will never get better at it. I've had people tell me that they had a terrible experience with their sonographer, like zero empathy, no conversation. They got bad news, and then the sonographer left the room and just kind of left them on their own. So not everyone is going to be good at it.
Okay. Yeah, it's tricky. It's probably something that a lot of people haven't thought about.
No. And I mean, you don't really get feedback either. Like a patient's not going to leave and then come back and tell you, oh, you did A, B, and C and it wasn't good. So
no, and you often wouldn't see the person again.
Yeah, exactly. So it's hard.
I don't imagine that many people remember the person who did their ultrasound for one thing. If they go for a second, they're not thinking, well, I get that same person. You don't necessarily remember them.
Yeah, I've had someone come back and it was really bad. Like, I did a scan for a 12-week ultrasound and there was some abnormalities, but not enough abnormalities for me to tell the parent.
Yes.
We just put it in the report. And unfortunately, that person had to have a termination because the abnormalities were quite marked. And then they came back a month later for a scan to check that their uterus was clear, and the husband got really aggressive. And we're not trained to deal with that kind of thing either.
And I imagine most of the time you're by yourself.
Yeah, in a room, closed, locked door. Yeah.
Are there policies around that sort of thing in terms of protecting you?
Every department has their own policy.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no like one rule within ultrasound. It's kind of different everywhere you go. Okay.
I wanted to ask you about the Jewish side of things. So obviously being publicly Jewish at the moment on social media can go either way.
Yeah.
How have you found the response? And I guess going back a step is, are you outwardly, promoting is probably the wrong word, but outwardly showing your Judaism? Or are you trying to hide it, which gives negative connotations, and I don't mean that. But how are you finding and navigating that?
Before October 7, there was nothing to hide. You know, I had playlists on TikTok like Jewish life, Jewish food, Jewish recipes, all that kind of stuff. Yes. And then after October 7, the antisemitism was there before, but after October 7, it was like unimaginable. Like I had my address leaked, you know, like death threats to my children, to me, to my husband. Like it got really scary for a while. So I did kind of pull back slightly just because I couldn't be bothered dealing with all of the hate comments. Yes. You know, every day deleting more and more, and also feeling unsafe at work with you see the news, you see things that happen. Yeah. And I thought that could be me. Like someone could show up to my workplace. I'm in a room on my own at work with the door closed. Yeah. So I reined it in a little bit, but then like my children started getting a bit older, and you know, we were doing the Chagim and all that kind of stuff in Shabbat, and I realized like if I want my children to be proud Jewish members of society, like I have to be prouder, like I have to be leading the way and show them like there's nothing to be afraid of, and like we're a beautiful community, and you have to wear it on the outside. So when you first started getting the hate mail, was that confronting? I imagine, scary, confronting. Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, I went to a Jewish school, and even then we had problems at school, like when we were doing inter-school sports with the non-Jewish schools, like there's antisemitism. So it's not something that was surprising, but I think some of the comments were so grotesque that even my parents were surprised when I showed them. Yeah. So that was confronting, and to happen every day. It feels more personal, I think. On the sporting field or at school, you feel like you're part of a pack. Yeah.
and there's that level of protection in a sense because you've got your friends and other Jewish people around you. But I guess when it's targeted on social media, that feels very personal.
And when they come from my children, then it's personal. Yeah.
Has it settled down at all?
It's eased off a little bit, but it's still every day. Like every day
Really?
I have to go because I have words filtered so that they don't show up in the general comment section. Okay. Every day I have to go into the filtered comments and delete them.
Incredible. Have you lost a lot of followers or post October 7? Was there a period of time where you went,
Oh yeah, so there was a period, it was mostly on TikTok, so I don't know if everyone is aware of it, but there was a thing called the block out. So anyone who didn't say anything in to support the Palestinian narrative was getting blocked, and it was this big movement. So I would imagine that I was blocked then by a lot of people. I don't talk about politics on my page at all because it's not what it's about. Yeah. But I'm sure I would have been blocked. I did lose a lot of followers. I lost a lot of brand deals. A lot of people didn't want to work with me anymore. So yeah.
So touching on the brand deals, it's not something that is, to me, that's really visible, which is I think is a great thing from an authenticity perspective. Have you got brands coming to do collabs with you or products, services? How does that go?
Yeah, I mean, I get offers all the time, but I say no to probably 90% of them because, I mean, it's only something that I do as a hobby and just as a bonus, and it takes up a lot of my time, but I also only want to work with brands or products that I actually believe in and use all the time. I want to be authentic 100% of the time, and I would never recommend something that I've never used. So for example, like I use if you follow me, you know that I've got like my food processor and it's 1 million years old and I use it in all of my videos. And so that brand offered to send me a new one in exchange for content. I was like, well, I'm already using the product. So, I already recommend it all the time. So perfect. Like that's a great deal for me. It aligns perfectly. Yeah. But then you get offers for products that you've never even heard of. And there are people who, because social media is their primary source of income, they will promote everything, and it's like this week I'm promoting this brand of nappies and next week it's this brand, and it's really obvious to the people who follow them too. Yes,
and just something, because I saw it on one of your latest posts that I was thinking about. So at the same time as all of this, because if that's not enough to juggle at the moment, you're renovating.
Yes.
How's that going?
So we bought our house in 2019, and we were really lucky. There was like a dip in the market. It was like perfect timing. And we bought this old house, and we thought it's perfect. Like it had like a hideous floral 1970s bathroom, and like there's like this brown like floral rug throughout the whole house, including the kitchen. And we thought we would renovate in like 10 to 15 years time, but then after COVID, the third bedroom became the home office. So we lost that room, and even though my children share a room, the second bedroom doesn't fit 2 beds in it. It was so small, so we were kind of forced in this situation that we had to renovate.
And are you finding the process stressful?
Not at all, because I am so far removed from it. I said to my husband and the builder, I don't want to be bothered with the small details. Like, I don't care if it's this shade of brown or that shade of brown. I don't care if the carpet is this color or that color. Yes. I'm like, I won't think about those things when I'm living in the house, and I'm very, very low maintenance. Okay. My husband, on the other hand, is so particular. Like, he will notice if the bench is out by like 0.5 centimeter. Okay. So he's the one who's
someone's taking care of it.
Yeah.
Okay, he can take that stress away from you.
Yeah.
Okay, now we've got a little bit of a fun wheel here that we're going to spin and see where it lands in terms of what we're going to ask you, and it might be something we've covered already.
Okay.
That way. Sorry, without knocking everything over. Is that going to spin enough? Yeah. And can't see.
Is it first job?
First job.
I worked at Glicks, which is why a lot of people in the community say to me, "Oh, I know your face."
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah.
How old were you when you started at Glicks?
Straight out of high school, and I worked there for 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I stayed.
In Carlisle Street.
Malvern. Okay. I stayed throughout all of my degrees right up until the end. Yeah. And it was really difficult. Like, you would think, oh, selling bagels, like, what's that? You could do it blindfolded. But I would work 14 hours on my feet. I did not sit down. I would sit down to eat for like 1 second and keep working.
And I don't imagine that the clients are so easy.
No, really difficult customers sometimes. So while I was studying, it was really good because I could just, I didn't have to think. I could focus all of my mental energy on my degree, and then I didn't have to think when I was at work.
Yeah.
And because when you work somewhere for a long time, you don't have to think about what you're doing anymore. But also people just like leave you alone. Like Mr. Blick didn't bother me. I just kind of did what I wanted to do and came in, went on my holidays, no one minded.
They trusted you.
It was actually a really good job.
Yes.
But then I worked at a hospital that had mostly Jewish patients afterwards, straight after Glicks, and it was really awkward.
Like you hadn't had enough.
People would be like, "Oh, did you work at Glicks?" I'm like,
You
no,
sold me my colour yesterday.
yeah.
Today you're seeing me in my underwear.
That's right.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, it was a bit awkward for a while.
Okay. And what do you think lies ahead?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I'm never going to stop doing ultrasound. That'll be for my forever career.
Yeah.
Social media.
And you love it, clearly.
Yeah, I love my job. It's such an interesting job. I'd recommend it to so many people.
Yeah. Social media, where's that headed for you?
Who knows? I mean, social media changes so much. 5 years ago, TikTok didn't exist.
Yes.
So you just don't know really what's going to happen. It would never be a full-time thing for me. It's always just going to be something that I do part-time in the background. You never know where things are going to go or how big things are going to get. But I'm not bothered either way. Like if my account never grew and it was just this, like I'd be happy with that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been so nice
me.
to talk to you, and good luck with wherever this leads you.
Thank you.
Yeah.